Yeah, I mean, what you want to be is top 5, top 10 in as many categories as possible. And if you do that, you're a really, really, really good football team.
And a good Birds Wednesday morning. Birds fans, thanks for hopping in here on Birds 365. You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. We're hanging with you for the next 2 hours. We get that much closer to the return of Doug Peterson and it's Jacksonville Jaguars Sunday down at Lincoln Financial Field. Johnny Mac will tell us all about Coordinator Tuesday and if he learned anything from the coaches that he got a chance to question and listen to yesterday. But before we go there, John, if you'd be so kind as to allow me a couple of minutes here to defend Birds 365 generally and John McMullen specifically.
Oh, wow. Yeah, go ahead. By all means.
Yes.
You got 2 hours to do that.
I'll wrap it up in 2 minutes. That's all it's going to take. For those of you who haven't, we got about 50 some odd people streaming in. Thanks for getting in early, guys. We really do appreciate those of you who are tuned right in at 8 o'clock because sometimes we don't actually get here till 8:01 or 8:02. Sometimes Jody Mac a little late. Sometimes Tone a little late coming over from the Jeff Kerr show. So we appreciate you being here right at the start. So I'm going to give you guys a little special peek behind the curtains look at Birds 365. When we wrap up the show every single day, and again, we got to get out. We can't be going till 10:04, 5, 6 like we have in the past because Saratella's show is coming up next. So we got to wrap it up. And then John and I and Tone will just say, hey, good show. Boom, got to go. And he gets the hell out. But John and I will stay in the boxes here for a couple minutes just to discuss the next day's show. Guests we're going to try and get on. And when we do that, we still have the feed open. And when we're on the air, we don't use those who comment much. And not that we don't appreciate you guys because we do, but I got John to talk to. John's got me to talk to. We always have at least one guest, if not two. So we don't have as much time to get into. Some of the other shows here on JAKIB Media use the stream more than we do. The comments on the stream more than we don't. But I try and check in with them. I try and do it while we're doing the show, but it's not easy. During the break, I'll do it or something like that because we're kind of busy hosting a show, so we can't be reading the screen on the side. And I read some of the comments after the show was over and done because John and I talked for a couple minutes. John dropped off, so I stayed on and I read some of the comments. John McMullen, Mr. Pessimism. John McMullen, I don't know if they used the word hater, but they were coming down on Johnny Mac for something he said in the final segment of yesterday's show, which, oh, by the way, I wholeheartedly agreed with. That's why I didn't call him out on it and say, Mr. Pessimism.
I don't even know what I said, Joe.
I'll explain it to you. If you're going to get on the stream and you're going to take a shot, and it was a shot at Johnny Mac, either me or John, doesn't matter, or the show in general, at least do us the favor of paying attention to what is being said in the context in what it's being said. Two people specifically said it because you used the word unsustainable. Well, here's what John was referring to in unsustainable about the Pro Football Focus rankings and where the Eagles are right now. They're number 1 overall as a team. They're number 1 in passing offense. They're number 1 in overall offense. They're number 1 in line block or whatever it was. Seamus put it up there. He had a good grouping of them. But they got like 7 categories that they're number 1 overall in the National Football League. That's unheard of. No one is that good, that they're that good in every aspect of the game. And they are that highly ranked because they've only played 3 games. So if you don't think they can continue being the number 1 team in the NFL in this many categories, it's basically unsustainable. Exactly what John said. And that's why I didn't go, John, what are you talking about? John, you're a hater. Why? No, he's right. He's 100% right. It's certain things that they've done here in the first 3 weeks are unsustainable. It doesn't mean that they're going to fall apart. It doesn't mean that they're doomed to come back to the pack. And that means nothing. All it meant was, in the way in which John said it was, it's unsustainable for them to stay at the level in the Pro Football Focus power ratings that they have. And he was 100% right. So if sorry, I'm getting all worked up. If
Now I'm letting you go. I
if
appreciate
you're going to critique John
Yeah.
or myself, and feel free, because we get stuff wrong. I know I do. John less than me, but every once in a while we get stuff wrong. And you can call us on the carpet, but at least do so correctly. What John said, and there was 2 or 3 comments about unsustainable. That's just McMullen be McMullen. He can't stand the Eagles' success. Bye-bye. At least get it right. At least call him on the carpet for what he should be called on the carpet for, or me on the carpet for. But John was 100% right. Right now, where the Eagles are at is probably unsustainable. At some point, they're going to come back to the pack in some of these categories. I apologize for using up 5 minutes of the show, but I thought it was necessary because you're calling my boy McMullen on the carpet. That's my job. When he says stupid stuff, it's for me to catch him and call him on the carpet, not you guys. But if you want to try, at least get it right in the context in which he presents it.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to it. I'm used to people taking things out of context. Kind of rolls off the back. I've been around too many coaches.
For some reason, it really bothered me yesterday, John.
Yeah.
The show is over and done with, and I read through a couple comments and go, what are they talking about? They're being completely unfair.
Yeah, it's expected, and that's why I say when I say stuff, I know it's going to be taken out of context. I mean, that's what people do. They take short clips and they take them out of context. But yeah, I mean, look, and Nick Sirianni says it all the time. You don't want to be in the bottom 5 in anything. We talked about motion a lot in the offseason. He still jokes about it today. Joked about it when we were talking about tempo. Can't use motion and tempo. So he tweaks us because they've had a lot of success with tempo early in the season. Yeah, I mean, what you want to be is top 5, top 10 in as many categories as possible. And if you do that, you're a really, really, really good football team. If you're number 1 across the board, yeah, you're the best team of all time. Is that sustainable? No, I could lie to you, but and a lot of people want that, Jody. It's not sustainable. You'll see. But I'll never get the apology, Jody. I'll never get the apology.
I guess I'm apologizing for them, which I really shouldn't do. But you got it from me. And just so you know, the categories John was referring to, team overall, they're the number 1 team. As per Pro Football Focus, I'm going to bring up a couple other media outlet power rankings in a second, but Pro Football Focus has them number 1 in the NFL. Overall offense, number 1. Passing offense, number 1. Pass blocking, number 1. Receiving, number 1. Can they continue to be the number 1 team in all of those categories over the course of the entire season? I don't think so. So that makes it unsustainable. So I agreed with John yesterday. And I thought you guys were picking on him, which is just blatantly unfair. Power rankings. Jimmy Kempski, our buddy from Philly Voice, does a nice job of grouping them all after they come out, usually on a Tuesday, because you got to let the Monday night game play out. And then on Tuesday, all the media outlets will give you their power rankings. Eagles are pretty good. Now, some people, if you're overly sensitive, like those who were John yesterday, taking what he said out of context, you might not like the rundown that I'm going to give you here. Kempski uses 7 or 8 major media outlets that come out with power rankings on the Tuesday. NFL.com had the Eagles at number 1. ESPN had the Eagles at 3. The Athletic had them at 2. Bleacher Report had them 2nd. Yahoo had them 2nd, which I don't understand. Yahoo had the Bills still at number 1 and the Dolphins at number 4. Wait, didn't the Dolphins Bills just play? And somehow,
those are like college rankings. It's not about head to head. It's about who you think is better. I would say the Bills are better. And if they played, 100 times, they're going to win probably 80 of them. But that's why power rankings don't mean anything.
Right. Here's the way I define power rankings. They're a snapshot.
Yeah.
At that moment, put them in the order they should be in. And they're fluid. They can change. Next week, play more games up. Yeah, move guys up, move guys down. How you rank the Bills ahead of the Dolphins when the Dolphins just beat them, I can't comprehend. That I don't understand. So some of them were a little wacky. CBS had the Eagles number 1 overall, and Sports Illustrated, Johnny's Ballywick, had them at number 3. So they're 1, 2, or 3 everywhere. They're 1 in a couple of different outlets. They deserve to be. They have achieved what they've achieved through the first 3 games. Now the question is, can they keep it up? And it starts this week against Jacksonville, which is going to be a nice little test. John, I'm actually happy that the Eagles are playing the Jaguars this week. I don't necessarily want to see them play the Packers or the Bucks or the Rams, one of the other 3 top teams in the NFC. I don't need another cupcake that they're going to be able to roll over and be out to a 24-7 lead. And then we got to come out and go, yeah, but they didn't score any points in the second half. And you defend them by going, oh, it's human nature, Joe. Yeah, you get a big lead, you just take your foot off the gas. I don't want to hear that again. So I think this is a perfect matchup for the Eagles this week. Jacksonville provides just the exact test that this team needs right now.
Yeah, and by the way, and when I say it is human nature, I'm making excuses for the Eagles. No,
yeah.
that's what I believe. I'm other people, obviously, you believe a little bit differently, but I'm just pointing out you can't
first week human nature. I'm good with it. Second week human nature. All right, now I'm starting to struggle with. Third week in a row, you're a National Football League team. You haven't figured out that your human nature got the best of you the last 2 weeks? Correct it.
Well, I don't even put week 1 in that category. They didn't score in week 1, obviously, they haven't scored at all. So we all know that. But they put the game away. I think people forget that. They ran a textbook version of the 4-minute offense. They bled the clock dry. They didn't give the football back to the other team. That's exactly what you're trying to do. That's the goal of every team when they run the so-called 4-minute offense. So I think they did the job. I think they showed they were tested in week 1 and they showed a sense of urgency. Everybody in the building knew they were going to run the football, including the Detroit Lions, and they ran the football and they bled the clock. So that to me is impressive. Week 2, week 3, they weren't challenged. Yeah, those are human nature games. Nick Sirianni admitted it after the first one. He didn't admit it after the second game because he didn't want to go down that route. Because of what you're saying, Jody. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to double down on that kind of stuff from a coach's perspective. But that's what happened. I mean, you can pretend it didn't happen from Nick Sirianni's perspective, but that's what happened. They were never challenged. If they were challenged, my gut in these games, I always talk about games have personalities. My gut is they would have responded. If the field goal is returned, for instance, against the Vikings, or if Irv Smith doesn't drop the pass, my gut is they would have responded. They didn't. They made all those mistakes, Minnesota, and a little lackadaisical. Same thing with Washington, who couldn't get anything going and until garbage time. That game was even more of a blowout, if you want to be honest. So, I don't have a problem with that. So you look at where the Eagles are. We talked about all the rankings, and Jacksonville is a much improved team with Doug Peterson coming in. The Eagles, I think, are number 1 in offense in the NFL, number 5 in defense. By the way. For all you Jonathan Gannon haters, number 5 is pretty good. Jaguars are also top 10 in both. I think 6th offense, 7th defense, or vice versa. So, I mean, they've been playing really well. And you could say small sample size. Well, Eagles are on a small sample size too. So if you're going to take the Eagles very, very seriously, you better take the Jags very, very seriously. And it starts with the quarterback who's really talented, but they have a good defense. It's interesting, probably the one thing both teams have done poorly, and really it was just week 1 for the Eagles, and that's tackling. And Jacksonville, the Eagles are, well, I'll look it up right now. They were 32nd. So we were talking after week 1. Now they're up to 26. So they're getting slowly better, incrementally better, correcting it. Jacksonville's 28th. Jacksonville's behind them as a tackling team. So maybe that's something to put an asterisk on. But they've been a really good team through 3 games. And, when you're that bad for that long and you keep drafting players, I say it all the time, Jody. You wake up one day and you go, wow, we got some good
We got
players.
a roster. I agree. I think they're a good test, good time. And again, we kind of disagreed on the Detroit game and the timing of it. You knew you had to play in Detroit. I just assumed playing week number 1. I was a closer game than I thought it was going to be. So the proof is in the pudding. Maybe I wasn't as right as I thought I was, but they did win the game. They had to win the game. They did win the game. They're 3-0. So I like the timing of it still. And this is the right time to get Jacksonville. You could make that same argument about Jacksonville, or you could have at the beginning of the season. Well, you don't want to play them early. Rather play them late, because by then they'll know they're still the Jags and not capable. No, this is actually a team I think that could get better and build confidence over the course of the season. Trevor Lawrence had a comment yesterday, a quote that tells me his confidence is not lacking. He believes in his team and is coming in here looking to move the ball against the Eagle defense. But I think it's a really good spot. So far, the schedule, for me, has worked very well for the Philadelphia Eagles in the way that it has laid out. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We've got a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 coming your way. We got 2 good guests. Mike Gill joins us most Wednesdays early. He'll be up on the board coming up in just a couple of minutes. And then a little bit later, EJ Smith of the Inquirer. We haven't had EJ on in at least a month. And I think he does a good job, very good job covering the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And when he's hopped on here with us on Birds 365, he's also been very good. So we got Gil first, EJ Smith a little bit later. I'll check out a couple of the streaming comments. They're probably ripping me now for me ripping them. Okay, fine. Just keep it in the proper context, folks. Appreciate you tuning in here on Birds 365.